Hush, little daily solutions, hush. It's time for you to go to bed. All right, welcome. This is Graham.
And this is Ashkahn.
And today's question is, what do I do when people won't get out of the tank when I play music at the end of their floats? Which I guess good. Won't is kind of an interesting word there. Like sort of implies that they heard the music and actively chose not to get out.
Yeah, like what happens if they just don't? They're in float land and they're just not coming out.
So I guess first of all, we call these people sinkers.
Yeah, it's our special term for it. And there's, I guess, kind of like an escalating level of responses we have to this.
Up to calling the fire department. No, it's not true.
Closing our business down, realizing they won.
Leave
they
them
can
in
just
there.
keep floating.
You guys can just float as long as you want, yeah.
So, I mean, step one is turning the volume up a little bit. That's kind of like, the first, all right, let's just see if a slightly louder volume kind of gets them out.
Yep, and I would say step two is almost like turning the volume all the way down and then back up.
Like off.
And then, like off, back up kind of thing. Because we've had people who the music comes on at the end and they know when the music comes on that they're supposed to get out. And they know that at the beginning of the float. And then the music comes on, they're so floaty, they're like, this music's awesome. Like, I definitely want to stay in here and listen to this, And so sometimes I think turning it back down can kind of like cue that part of their brain that remembers that it actually triggers the end of the session.
Or just, that kind of abrupt change. I mean, what I used to do is I turn it off and I'd wait like 30 seconds and then turn it back on. And just kind of like that startup of music again was sometimes enough to I mean, sometimes I think people are not like aware that the music is playing. They're like either half asleep or just kind of like so deep into their float world that it's not even like registering with them,
Totally. So turn it up, turn it off, and then up.
Yeah. What's
step three?
Step three for us is playing a different track of music. So instead of our kind of like very relaxing, welcome back to the world sort of music that we have we play Get Up, Stand Up is what we play at our place.
Such a good track for that. And that's a really good one to play. And then we also actually recorded a voiceover of me talking, basically actively telling people that it's time to get out of the tank as kind of the next track after that, which is basically like, hey, I know that you enjoy floating here, but your session's over. You might not have realized it. Time to get the heck out of here. But I think it actually says stand up, stand up, open the door, get out and shower, just like very concrete instructions in case their brain's not processing that well, And then what step are we on now? 4 or 5?
The next step. I mean, that's kind of the end of pleasant steps, really, right? I mean, from there it pretty much goes straight to knocking on the door.
Yep. Yeah. So knocking on the door to the room.
Yeah.
And then.
And we, I guess there's kind of gentle knock and then more forceful.
Knock.
Yeah, police knock. It was kind of like 2 stages of that.
Yep. And so then if they still don't get out of the room, or really if we don't, in our case, kind of see our shower sensor light come on, but in other cases hear the shower come on, then the next step is to actually go into the room and knock on the tank itself.
Well, I'll usually just open the door and say something first. I've had that work. Be like, hey, just checking in, and they'll like respond or.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. So shout through the crack in the door.
Yeah. Step 7.5 is.
and then going in and actually kind of knocking on the back of the tank or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's good. You can usually get a sense when you're going in there. Again, I guess the shouting is actually really good for figuring out if they are actually out of the tank or anything.
Right.
And you don't want to, hopefully, catch someone naked or anything like that if you can avoid it. So knocking on the back of the tank is definitely the next step after that. And then usually that does it. Rare is the case when I've had to progress past actually just knocking really loudly on the back of the tank, But sometimes,
happen.
And we're open 24 hours a day, so if you can imagine getting sinkers during normal float hours, the people who go really deep in it at 2 a.m. are also equally as hard to get out at 4:30 in the morning for us. So we have some pretty extreme people. So the next step after that is to actually kind of open the door of the tank and shout in, be like, hey, like everything okay in there? It's, your session's up. And then after that is the weirdest part, which is like either kind of like
poking them with a pool noodle.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of like just giving them a little pool noodle tap on the toe or something like that. Or like actively sort of like, poking their toe or grabbing it and giving them a little like shake to wake them up. And it sounds super weird, but at some point you're just like, okay, well, I can't leave this person in my tank forever. And it has been this escalating progression of trying to get them out. And the cool thing is that no matter the length you have to go to pretty much to get someone out of the tank, it's the level at which they don't care because they were so deep in a float and are so blissed coming out afterwards. Like, I feel like everyone's reaction when I've gotten them out of the tank after, I think I've only done it to 2 people where I've actually had to like poke them with the pool noodle or kind of give their toe a little nudge. And they both just come out and I'm like, how was the float? They're like, that was awesome. Like, mention nothing about being woken up abruptly. They're just almost like puddles of goo that settle into the couch.
It's true. Like, I've never had anyone like have a bad experience as a result of any level of escalation we've had to do to get them out.
So that at least in Float On is kind of the full. Then of course next call the fire department. But that's the full kind of escalation that we do for getting people out of the tank. And honestly, by the time you hit get up, stand up, usually that's enough. You don't usually actually have to progress that much further than that.
And I mean, I guess maybe the other thing to talk about is customers. What do you tell the next customer who's waiting to go into that room?
Sure, right. Because if someone's taking a while to get out,
right,
it's causing your tank to be full. So I guess one nice thing, we run a 6-tank center. So if there's one person who's kind of staying in there and taking a while to get out, chances are that's going to be the last person to get out of the tank. So in the meantime, we can be cleaning every other room and be getting people into those rooms. And with luck, even still, we don't get them out too late where we're not getting the next person in on time. Like we could, even despite all of this, we could still get the next floater in a timely manner.
Right.
And if that doesn't work...
Usually they don't mind too much. I mean, I think people are kind of understanding and realize that this is probably a pretty rare occurrence and there's not much you could be doing other than what you are doing. And then, we can try to get that one person to have a slightly longer flight. Like, we'll get them out a little bit longer or a little bit later to accommodate. And those kind of 2 things in combination, like them kind of not caring a huge amount and us trying to be as flexible as we can, usually solves the problem.
Yeah, definitely. And you can kind of roll it, forward even by a couple of sessions. Like if you get the next person out 10 minutes later and kind of let them know that they should shower off faster and just to kind of respect the time of the person after them. And then you get that person out 5 minutes later. You can kind of do this little like rolling correction kind of thing.
It almost never happens for more than one. Like I can usually correct within a single session or something.
Totally. And we do 2.5 hours when we do our night floats. And so for those people, it's actually not that big a deal. Like the times when I've had it happen most to me personally are when I'm working the night shift. And, an extra 10 minutes off of 2.5 hours, I think, bugs people a lot less than it would if it was 10 minutes shaved off of their 60-minute float or something like that. So
yeah, definitely.
The longer your float sessions also, I think, the little bit more leeway you're allowed in that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. So thanks for tuning into today's episode. And as always, if you have any float tank questions, any salty concerns, feel free to shoot them along our way. You can do that at floattanksolutions.com/podcast, and we'll cover them on an upcoming episode.
All right. See you tomorrow.